Call meeting of Sioux Falls School District Board to order. All in attendance with the exception of Tom Buchholz. We will now move into executive session under ORS 192.6602I to review and evaluate the performance of the chief executive officer or any other public officer, employee, or staff member unless the person whose performance is being reviewed and evaluated requests an open hearing. Okay, we'll return to regular open session now, and we'll have the flag salute, and we'll be using the small one over here to my left.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Entertain a motion concerning the agenda review.
I move to accept the agenda as published.
Second?
Been moved and second to accept the agenda as published. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nays? All in favor. The consent agenda.
Move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second?
Been moved and second to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay? All in favor. And then, Kim, did you have?
I do have something I want to
Okay.
share this evening. So before I begin, and not as part of my superintendent report this evening, I just want to briefly address the troubling trend that I've seen in our community recently. So our small rural community mirrors the larger political landscape in the United States, where we have both strong conservative and strong liberal groups who often do not agree on how public education should look. Both groups passionately advocate for what they believe in, and social media is a common outlet for both desires and frustrations. This ultimately leads to division in our schools and community, which is something that is not good for kids, and also does not serve the majority of our population who lie mostly in the middle. As educators, we are constantly wondering if our policies and practices are good for kids. We strive daily to meet the needs of all students, and we work tirelessly to provide the best education possible for all of our students without consideration for whether students come from conservative or liberal backgrounds. We try to operate as a neutral entity, not here to indoctrinate students in one way or another, but here to encourage them to think critically for themselves and to find their own answers and pathways. We do not have the ability to side with one group or the other, or to promote either ultra-conservative or ultra-liberal policies, because our community is a combination of those ideals, with the majority of our community falling in the middle somewhere. What we are required to do is follow state and federal law and act with integrity. When I was hired, I mentioned to the board many times during my interview that we need to get into the middle to serve every student and family in our community and ensure that we do not politicize education. We are divided in our political ideals, but we cannot function as a school community that is in the midst of a cultural war. The students need us to focus on education, not navigating the complicated political realm that further divides us and threatens the very fiber of our community. I stand behind my early response to the board that we must find middle ground. We must work together and not allow our political differences to impact our ability to serve each student in our district. We have the ability to lead in this capacity, and we've shown that, to positively impact our public schools and create spaces for all students and so they feel like they belong. To show other districts and educators that we understand that our response and our ability to collaborate and find common ground is what our students need, not further division. And I'm asking you to join me in the middle. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Now we'll have our student representatives, Kai and Mariah. Come on up.
Hello, my name is Maria Wacker. I am a sophomore and one of the ASB School Board representatives for Silverton High School.
My name is Kai Hawley, and I am a senior and the other ASB School Board representative. We will be representing on behalf of the student body as a whole. I'm very excited to announce that we are in full swing of Best Fox Ever, with the show coming on April 19th.
Our contestants for Best Fox Ever 2025 are Cordelia Bay, Kai Hawley, Alexis Fentimore, Ryder Britton, Jada Ridgway, Brooke Summers, Grace Hayashida, and Khalil McElfresh. We are very excited for this talented group of seniors to work hard in organizing school and community fundraisers.
Our upcoming fundraisers that you should look forward to is our Bingo and Silent Auction Night on April 2nd at 6 p.m. in the Silverton High School Commons.
We are also hosting a pickleball tournament on April 11th at the middle school tennis courts. Grab your pickleball buddy and participate in this doubles competition.
In the SHS main gym on April 12th, we will be having a pajama party movie night where we will be watching Cars and Ratatouille.
Transitioning to our performing arts at SHS, the musical Newsies put on by our theater department came to an extremely successful close, with SMTS now gearing up for the spring play, The Actor's Worst Nightmare.
Our band has a concert tomorrow night at 7 p.m. in the auditorium, and our choir has a concert this Thursday at 7 p.m. in the auditorium. Bring your family and friends to experience the impressive musical talent that Silverton High School has to offer.
Next, we have our winter sports coming to a strong end. Our swim team competed at state, with girls finishing 6th overall and boys finishing 5th overall. Wrestling competed at state, where Brash Henderson finished his great wrestling career at Silverton with a 2nd place finish. Michaela Bonin finished 2nd in state, our highest female wrestling finish in Silverton history. And we want to extend a big congratulations to Bo Searcher, who is a state champion, winning his match with a takedown in the last 5 seconds to win the 1st place finish.
We commend our boys basketball team for working hard this season and ending with a 15-10 record and fought hard in the playoffs versus Wilsonville this past Saturday. Our girls basketball team is continuing to go strong this season as they head to the state tournament this Wednesday at 8:15 p.m. at Linfield University against West Albany. We hope you can go cheer them on as they battle for the state title.
Cheer team finished their season with competing in multiple competitions and competing at state, where they had some great success they hope to continue to build upon.
Our dance team continues to be dominant as they gear up for their state tournament that will happen in 2 weeks. They competed this last weekend where they had another 1st place finish in contemporary.
Our spring sports are also gearing up, with track, baseball, softball, tennis, and golf practice beginning this week.
Check out the OSAA website and Silverton Athletics Instagram page to follow upcoming games to cheer on our Foxes this season.
Our clubs and activities at the high school are continuing their success through this winter season as well, with speech and debate working hard and preparing for their district's tournament this weekend. Our clubs meet once a month on Tuesdays at the high school during AG and other times outside of school as well.
We want to make sure everyone knows that we continue to post information about upcoming events and happenings at Silverton High School on our social media pages through Facebook and Instagram, as well as the Silverton High School website and on Parent Square.
We are excited about what's in store for the continuation of this school year, where our focus to be great Foxes, who exemplify our Fox values of respect, dignity, compassion, and inclusion.
Thank you everyone for all of your support and hard work to ensure we have the best school year possible. Go Foxes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, you guys. Lots going on.
Yeah, a lot. Okay, and now we'll have Tiffany come on up and talk to us about Scotts Mills and Silvercrest Schools, where she's principal.
Thank you, board members, for having me tonight. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started with Silvercrest, home of the Raiders. All right, looking at our enrollment and staffing, you can see that last year in the 23-24 school year, we were at 141 students, and at this year we are at 116. Our staff reductions from last year to this year, we are one teacher, one certified position, as well as 4 IAs from what we had last year. And our PE last year, being a full-time PE position, is at a 0.8 PE and 0.2 Title I intervention funding. The Raiders culture is still strong. Our focus on student, staff, community relationships continues. We do value our academics and place an emphasis on achievement. We have remarkable community support. We have volunteers that come in, some that were former employees that continue to be dedicated to our school. And our boosters has come through time and time again with funding in a year where funding can be a little tight. Normally the school provides amounts to each teacher at the beginning of the year for them to be able to spend on their classroom. This year Booster stepped in and provided $500 for each of our teachers to spend on their classroom so that it didn't have to come out of our school budget. Anything that has been asked of them, they have come forward and have provided to us, so they have been a huge blessing. And then high attendance. All of our grades, K through 8, currently averaging above 90% daily attendance. Our reading data based on the DIBELS measurement. This is one of 2 measures that students take. They also take the iReady at the K-5 level. So you can see that in the fall, our K-5 totals were at 49% at or above benchmark, and in winter they did drop to 48% benchmark. For math, this one is based on the iReady test. And at fall, we had 11% K-5 at or above benchmark, and by winter benchmark, we had 29% at or above at the K-5 level. For our middle school, I have both reading and math on this slide since there are fewer grades. So we have reading fall to winter up here. So in fall, we had 74% at or above benchmark. And 66% at or above benchmark in the winter. I do want to let you know that we have been through multiple teachers at that position, and the students have had lots of subs this year. So we were expecting to see a drop at that time. Math, fall to winter, at or above benchmark, 50% in the fall, and winter benchmark, 64% at or above. So seeing some great growth there in the math department. All right, our school-wide goals, we have 3 goals, 1 in reading, 1 in math, and 1 for SEL. Our reading goal is that for K-8, we will increase at or above grade level from 58%, which it was in the fall when you combine the K-8. The slides before had K-5 and then 6 through 8. So when you combine them, we were at 58% in the fall, and our goal is to bring that to 75% by the spring. For math, we are looking at a goal of increasing from 27% at or above grade level in the fall collectively to 50% at or above grade level by spring. And then for SEL, we do implement the universal PBIS expectations building wide. So those are just having those standard school-wide expectations as well as the standard positive behavior support system through our Raiders tickets, our Raiders store, and then having universal measures of if we do have to deal with behaviors throughout the school. So our think sheets, our oops slips, and progressive. We have a behavior framework throughout the school. So again, those consistent expectations, and students know what is appropriate in one space to the next. All right, our approach for how we're going to reach those goals, we do utilize the district approved and provided curriculum across the grade levels. We participate in the district K-8 PLCs, so that's where they have a chance to meet with colleagues from other K-8 schools. We utilize the district projection and unit maps that they've been working on across the last 3 years. We participate in 100% core review meetings. That is something that's new to our school this year. And we had someone from OD, from the Oregon RTI, come in and facilitate it for us and help guide the 100% meetings. And what that is we look at 100% of our kids, and in theory, 80% of them should be at or above grade level just based on the core. And so looking at, okay, so if that's not happening, what do we need to do to get them there? And finding some priority standards or some priority skills that we can focus on with all of our students to help raise the majority. So that's not looking so much at intervention, but what everybody's getting. And then making data-driven decisions. With our reduction in staff, our capacity for providing intervention has been reduced this year. And so using the data to really decide which students are going to be getting the intervention at which level. All right. Things that we have going on and ways that we are able to involve our parents in our community. Obviously, our parent-teacher conferences, the Christmas tree run. We did keep the tradition alive and well this year. We had a great turnout of all the students running. The monthly PBIS assemblies where we invite parents in, become a substitute. We've actually had some parents become substitutes and start subbing in the school because that was a need. And they said, you know, what is your need? And we needed subs. Volunteering, family literacy night, we have actually postponed to correspond with the chili feed the booster is putting on April 9th. So if you want to come out for some chili and family literacy night, we invite you out for that. And then again, I already did say our boosters, you know, a great way to get parents involved, and they have been a tremendous support to our school this year. Questions on Silvercrest?
I just have one question.
Yes.
Just curious if you can give us any information about the enrollment, and it seems like a significant reduction this year.
It is, and we will be looking at another reduction this year, or going into next year, because right now our 8th grade class is 18 and our kindergarten class is only 10, and we're only expecting another 10. And so that's been a trend we've seen where we have been promoting 8th grade classes that are bigger than the incoming kinders.
All right, thank you.
I just wanted to give appreciation for the 100% core idea. I've never heard that term before. I totally get the concept, and it sounds like it could be fruitful. So I just wanted to compliment you on that.
Thank you. It was very insightful. Okay, so the Scotts Mills presentation is going to be similar. Wait for that to be pulled up. All right, so similar numbers. Student enrollment last year was at 157. This year was at 141. And I will, Owen, you asked about enrollment. So prior to this year, some of our families did start a co-op, and that did take a pull from ours. We also had a handful of families that went to online schooling prior to the year starting. Staffing changes. So we were reduced to 1.75 teachers overall. So it was one full-time position, 0.25 of one of our middle school teachers, and then another half-time position. In addition, our PE, which was full-time last year, has been reduced to 0.8, and we now share with Evergreen. And we are reduced 5 IAs. In addition, our reading interventionist is half paid for by an anonymous donor this year. So our culture, very similar to Up the Hill. You know, we do have that focus on academics, the strong community relationships, as you can tell. I mean, we had an anonymous donor pay for a teacher. That's a dedicated community to the academics of our student and their achievement. We have volunteers. Again, some of them were former employees. Some of them are just volunteers that are so dedicated that they will turn down a paid subbing position because they don't want to miss out on their volunteer hours. We have just amazing, dedicated parents and community members. And also, we boast that same high attendance that Silvercrest has. All right, so on to our reading data. This is, again, just looking at the K-5 portion of the population and just looking at that Dibbles data point. Our at or above benchmark for reading in the fall was 43%. And as you can see, it stayed fairly stagnant with at or above benchmark at 44% in the winter. For math, which is iReady, again, we do see a little more of an increase there. We were at 6% at or above benchmark in the fall, and we jumped to 19% at or above benchmark in the winter, as for our K-5. For our middle school data for reading, we were at 69%, and again, reading's the top one here. 69% at or above benchmark in the fall, and we saw a slight jump to 70% at or above benchmark in the winter. For math, again, we see a little bit more of a jump. We have 50% at or above benchmark in the fall to 61% at or above benchmark in the winter. Our goals, similarly written to Silvercrest, but here we are looking for an increase from 51% K-8 to 75% at or above grade level in reading by the end of the year. We are looking at an increase from 22% to 50% at or above grade level in math, K-8 by the end of the year. And we also use the same PBIS universal expectations and implementation system that Silver Crest has. One thing that we have at Scotts Mills that doesn't happen at Silver Crest is, in addition to our PBIS store where students are able to redeem their tickets for prizes, we also do a Woot Woot cart every Friday where we come around and do some drawings too. So just a little extra fun. We have a former employee volunteer to come in and take care of that, which is why it's been able to continue. All right, so we also use the district approved and provided curriculum and participate in those same K-8 PLCs. One thing that we have here is we do have regular MTSS meetings monthly at each grade level where we do look at those targeted 20% students. We look at their attendance, we look at the growth that they are making, and we recalibrate groups as needed to ensure that students are progressing as they should, the ones that are in the well below category. And then we do have a designated interventionist. Like I said, they are donor funded, but it is a designated person who is able to provide intervention to small groups throughout the day. All right, some of the things happening at Scotts Mills. Every year we put on a Veterans Day assembly that is well attended in order to honor the veterans of our community. We do caroling around the neighborhood at Christmas time. Yes, we do. And we have a craft day where volunteers from the community will come in and do crafts with the kids K through 8. We just recently did our family literacy night. It happened last week. We had a great turnout. We had pizza. We did some breakout rooms where they had to solve puzzles. The middle school also was involved, and they did some trivia night. And then the book fair was open to families at that time as well. PTCC has their silent auction coming up in April. We also have the parent-teacher conferences. We do our monthly PBI assemblies there. And then, like I said, we have a great base of volunteers that come in and help us out. Questions on this one?
I was just wondering, both groups, your attendance was high. Do you have any secret on what you're doing there, or is it the community in general, or?
It's the community in general.
Yeah.
They're wonderful.
Yeah. So.
I've got a question. I think for both schools, the increases that you're looking at making from now to spring was about 20% in each category. Does that kind of match up with what you typically would go for, like historically, or has there been any shift just with the change in resources?
They are similar to the goals for each school from last year.
Okay. Thank you.
I liked the jump in those scores, the way they jumped. I saw that the middle stayed about the same, and the bottom dropped significantly, and the top went up. So that was very telling. I thought that was good to see. So a lot happening at those schools.
Thank you. There is. Great places to be. All right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Tiffany.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll have the Silver Falls Education Association.
Good evening.
Hello.
Hopefully you
Evening.
guys are adjusting to daylight savings time better than we are today. It's been a struggle today. This is thankfully a much different board address than the one I delivered last March. While there's still much work to do to repair our trust and collaboration, we strongly believe that our current district leadership has us going in the right direction. We have heard time and time again from our members how they've felt supported and listened to. In our roles on the SFEA executive team, we see the same things in our monthly meetings with district leadership. This goes for both their interactions with other staff members as well as our personal interactions with them. This year has felt like a true partnership between SFEA and Silver Falls leadership, which is a very refreshing experience compared to the last several years.
Last week, we submitted our intent to bargain to district leadership. This is the first step in negotiating our next contract. Our current contract expires at the end of June. Although it feels like we just went through this, here we are again. Our members are overwhelmingly in favor of negotiating a one-year contract to buy time to see where the district and state budgets end up. This one-year contract means only a handful of items would be looked at this year, and then next year, the whole contract would be reopened. We hope to have our first dates on the calendar in the next couple of weeks. Our hope is that this negotiation will be open and transparent for our members as well as the whole community. We want to place priority on collaboration and honest discussions on how to improve the working conditions of Silver Falls educators, which in turn improves the learning conditions for Silver Falls students. With what we've experienced this year, we don't have any reason to expect otherwise. Thank you.
I've got a quick question, Laura.
Yes.
So, I'm trying to wrap my head around this. So, you guys are, your contract ends June of this year, and you guys are wanting to start bargaining for a one-year contract?
Yes.
And when is that gonna start?
We hope to have our first date on the calendar within the next couple of weeks.
For the bargaining?
Yes.
Oh, so we're going, okay.
Yes.
For a 1 year.
A much shorter process, since it's such a unique year with all the budgets, and then this being the first year for our new leadership having gone through, they haven't even gone through a full school year yet. So we felt that that would be the best option for us, for everybody involved.
And Laura, I just want to say thank you for taking that approach and your willingness to look at it from that 1 year. I think that'll really help our district, you know, given the reasons you said with our new district leadership, our current financial situation, budgeting, and again, in the first year in a new biennium and the unknown. So I just want to say I appreciate the association's willingness to collaborate in that way, because I think that's going to be the best way forward for now. So thank you.
Of course, of course. Any other questions? Perfect, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we're to the first public comment moment in the agenda. If you wish, we're glad you're here and welcome you to address the board with your ideas, concerns, or compliments. Please keep the following in mind. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand to be recognized by the board chair. If attending remotely, please use the raise hand feature within Zoom. For the record, please provide your name and relationship to the district. Please keep individual remarks to 3 minutes. If speaking as a representative on behalf of a group of 3 or more, comment time will be extended to 5 minutes. A second public comment period will occur later in the meeting that is specific to the discussion and action items only. The board will not hear complaints against individual district staff or board members during public comment. Please understand that the board's primary role is to listen, and you will not receive an immediate response. Finally, remember, we all model the way for our students and ask that you share your thoughts respectfully and in accordance with the Silver Falls School District Board Decorum Agreement. Do we have anyone that would like to make comment? Sir, right here.
Good evening.
Name and...
My name is Bob Schaefer, live a couple miles down the road. Been in the district for about 45 years, sat in your spot for about 18 of those, a long time ago. First of all, I want to start off by commending the board, particularly the new members. You came into a very challenging financial situation. Talk about learning by fire. You guys, I think, did a yeoman's job, and I commend you for making a lot of tough decisions, but I really feel like the district is going in the right direction. So thank you so much for the turnaround that you've created, in my mind anyhow. So as a business person, I'm probably the oldest person in this room, looking around, and sometimes kids like you, except for you,
Yeah, I'm not.
ask me, as a business person, what's the one thing, that you feel has made you successful And I answer speed reading. I like to see what we were seeing as far as reading scores, but back in the 70s, I decided to take a speed reading course. I went and tested, it was a one-day course. Went in and tested about a little over 300 words per minute, came out over 800 words a minute. And when you can read fast, your retention is much better. That's the biggest thing I got out of it, is your retention is so much better. So I'm recommending that the board talk to the staff about sometime in the curriculum, and I don't know what age class is appropriate, but reading fast is really, really beneficial, I think, in any person's lifetime. So just throwing that out there. Now, I have some handouts. Can I hand them out?
Thanks, Bob.
Appreciate that. Thank you. I think I'm going to take one of these.
Thanks, Bob.
Maybe you've already all seen this.
How old were you when you took the course?
I was 24. No, 29.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
Okay.
I wanted to give one back to the staff after too, but I don't.
How's he doing, man?
This is an article I just read this morning in the Wall Street Journal. If you read the first paragraph, it kind of grabs your attention. It says, a 19-year-old woman in Connecticut grabbed headlines last week for graduating from her public high school with honors, even though she can't read. She is suing the school board for negligence. This goes on to talk about a lot of different educational aspects. Am I done?
Yeah. Thanks,
But
Bob.
anyway, good reading,
Yep.
something to think about.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Yes, back there. Put my glasses, I don't see people.
How are you tonight?
We're fine.
Good.
Johnny Farrow. I have twins who are in 6th grade in the school district. My husband and I live on Mount Angel Scotts Mills Road. So, Board Chair Wiesner, members of the board, on behalf of my husband Eric and myself, I'd like to offer a statement of support for Interim Superintendent Kellison tonight. We've been navigating some health protocol 504 and academic concerns with our children over the last several months. And during that time, Interim Superintendent Kellison has opened her door, thoughtfully shared her vision, barriers, and progress. It is no doubt there are significant things hitting her desk every day, and I'm thankful that she chooses to come every day knowing that. What stands out has been her calm, dedicated, and compassionate leadership during this time. And under her supervision and role, we've felt welcomed, heard, valued, and supported in ways we haven't recently. Her commitment to advocacy and collaboration has helped us make important decisions and reassured us that Silver Falls is still the district that we want our kids to attend. Her leadership is truly a breath of fresh air, and when she says we need middle ground, I believe that wholeheartedly. And that we're really thankful to have district leaders, again, who listen, engage, and work alongside families, even when it's hard. It's obvious she's committed to the success of all students in this district. And as we looked at the agenda tonight, we wanted to share that we strongly urge the school board to continue supporting Superintendent Kellison and to take the necessary steps to move her contract to permanent status. We feel confident with her leadership and believe it's exactly what the school district needs to heal and recover from a really difficult time. This is a time for stability and progress, and we believe it's important for not only our students, but for the staff of this school district and our greater community. So I wanted to go on record as sharing that tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Anyone else here? And I see a hand back there.
I hear my kindergartner saying help, so I might have help up here.
Okay, name please and connection to the district.
Yeah, my name is Susanna, and my older kiddo graduated from high school last year, and my younger kiddo is in kindergarten here this year. So I just want to speak briefly in regards to the book that was removed from the high school library. And I am concerned about books being removed for a number of reasons, especially in this political climate. And I think that history will show us that people who get rid of books in society don't turn out being the good guys, and I don't want that to be us. I want us to be able to hold up our heads and say we did what was right for everybody. And while that's not always easy, I don't think removing a book because it explicitly talks about the relationship between same-sex couples, I don't really think that that's where we should be going, because my guess is we're not going to be removing books that talk about relationships between opposite-sex couples. I think we're going on a really slippery slope if we end up doing that. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Do we have anyone online?
You have no hands raised online at this time.
Okay, we do have one here though, yes. Hi.
My name is Christy Fleischman. I have 3 sons in the school district ranging from elementary to high school. My son was the high schooler that came home with screenshots of pictures of a book that was in the library. Him and his friend were reading, and he was concerned about the content, so that he didn't have to come in front of the board. I called the school and spoke to the counselor, and I appreciate the counselor listening to our concerns and the student's concern and his friend's concern. I came to provide support to that counselor for supporting the student and also for our concerns. I was going to read a part of the book. There is some very graphic content, so I'm going to keep it, and knowing that there are young children in the room, I'm going to pick an excerpt that isn't as graphic. It's borderline pornographic. It is pornographic, most of the content in the book, with pictures and explaining how to do sexual acts. And also talking about apps and how to go find sexual partners on the internet, giving steps for these students to follow. To read one excerpt, page 156, how sex apps work. 1, upload a tiny pic of yourself to the app. 2, the app works out your location. 3, the app tells you who the nearest homosexuals are. 4, you then chat with them. 5, because they are near, it's easy to meet up with them. If you're looking for the ambiguous fun, the words sex, shag, and the F word, ironically, are banned on most sex apps. But up front and about it, and then no one's feelings are going to get hurt. That's just one small excerpt. And again, my son came to me worried that this was in the library. Him and his friend were leaning over the book, looking at it, and a teacher came up and said, "What are you boys doing? I don't think you should be looking at that." So if the adults in the room don't think that the student should be reading that with their friend, if it shouldn't be open, then why would that be taken away from them? So I don't know, it's just, I'm against taking books away because I believe in books. However, content is very, very important. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else here in the room? Online?
No hands raised online at this time.
Okay. Then we'll go to administrative and staff reports. Kim, looks like you're up first.
Take them up. Okay, thank you, Phil. Okay, well, let's get started here. Our March report. So we're going to talk about our classified employees of the year. That was really fun. And I'll actually let Tony do that when we get to that section. And he can talk a little bit about what we did that day. OSBA guidance, I'm going to talk about some complicated things that are coming down the pike that keep going across my desk, and how we try to kind of manage those things and follow the correct laws and all the different things. It's really complicated. It's a good time. PG electric bus grant, which is very exciting news that I'll share with you guys, and then an update on our snow days. So it's kind of a short report tonight because we have some other big topics at the end here. So Tony, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk about our classified employees and kind of what our process was.
Great. Each year we have the opportunity to recognize our various employee groups. Each year we have a classified employee recognition week. We have a licensed administrator, a license recognition week, and then we also have weeks where maybe we don't celebrate it as publicly as much, but we also have weeks where we recognize administrative staff and whatnot. And this year, we had the opportunity to recognize our classified employees last week. As part of that process, we accepted nominations for the Classified Employee of the Year Awards, and we received about 40 plus nominations for 22 different employees. And after a review of those nominations, we selected 2 employees to be the 2025 Classified Employees of the Year. We selected one employee who would be at the secondary level, so middle school and high school, and then one that would be at the elementary level. Our 2 recognized employees are at the secondary level, Jose Rivera, who works as the ELD advocate and assistant. He actually works much of the day in Lori Wire's room, but he also this year, because of our needs, and you've heard several administrators talk about our challenges with staffing from last year's reductions and whatnot. Well, Jose actually also goes one period a day over to the middle school to help out. So he really goes above and beyond. He sponsors and works with several of the clubs and advocates for all of our Hispanic students at the high school. And we had a lot of positive comments about him really supporting the students, but not enabling them. Which is very important. Maintaining highest expectations for our students is truly the way to success. So we recognize Jose. At the elementary level, Tricia Craig, who's our reading and title assistant at Robert Frost Elementary School, was recognized. The thing that stands out the most about Tricia is that her nominations reflected not only strong support for her work with students, whether it's helping students with reading, whether it's when a student, there was an example, for instance, where a student forgets their glasses, she will make it a point to go to the teacher of those students to try to do what she can to try to make sure that the students actually get the glasses they need. But just as equally as important, the nominations for Tricia highlighted her work in trying to further her own development as an educator, doing a lot of professional development on reading, keeping up on the best practices. Even a few of the teachers who nominated her reflected on her ability to really dig into the research, and they actually found inspiration as her. It's always a wonderful thing when you have teachers saying, I wish I could be more like Tricia. So it was a wonderful opportunity. Superintendent Kellison and I, you can see some of the pictures that are up there. We're able to go to the 2 schools, and very unique settings, different and unique settings between the 2, but equally memorable moments for us in recognizing them. So congratulations to Jose and to Tricia, and we are very grateful to the board and to our whole team for allowing us the opportunity to recognize employees who are doing this work, hard work in support of students every day.
Yeah, it was a great day, and Jose actually translated his own award in front of his class. Lori, did you mind commenting?
I was just gonna say, Jose actually spends the majority of his day in classrooms interpreting for the students, like lectures and things that can't be easily translated, that aren't in materials. So he does that in core content. So the time he's with me is when I have the newcomers in for ELD, but he's everywhere. He works in all those core contents, and he goes over the middle school. So he's out and about and in the middle of everything.
Yeah, we also had a really fun time at Robert Frost, and Tricia probably would love us to mention that she doesn't normally wear her pajamas to work. It was pajama day, and I will say Tricia has very stylish pajamas on in this photo. So it was really cool. The kids got to come out and see, her win that prize, and the whole staff came out and took that photo with her. So I mean, it was a really special, beautiful celebration, and I thank Tony and Marissa for taking such great care of it and putting the whole presentation together. And then I was in charge of the movie basket, so I bought with my own personal money, not district money, movie tickets and snacks and all the fun things. So we hope they enjoy that, because that's very well deserved. Okay. Whoops. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the Dear Colleague letter. So this letter went out to every K-12 school in the nation, plus all the universities. And it was a really difficult letter to unpack, and Owen and I had some great discussions, because he's got a sharp legal mind. And he's like, Kim, what about this? And so he actually really made me think about it a lot and in different ways. And it is really difficult to try and navigate all the things we have coming in from the federal level. And we're still getting guidance from OSBA, we're getting guidance from ODE, and OHA. Like, we still get guidance from all these state agencies, but now we also have some additional guidance coming from the federal level. So OSBA sent us, at the day I finished trying to figure it out, they sent us guidance and said, this is what this means. And I'm like, well, that would have been great like 2 days ago, but here we are. Tony and I had fun with it. So this is kind of what OSBA sent to us. So going forward, they mentioned that superintendents and school districts need to follow state and federal law, that is our first priority. The Dear Colleague letter is not law and does not require school to cut or change programs. I think that there was some confusion in the state about whether title programs, there was a part of it that threatened, federal funding for different programs. And I think there was some confusion around that. So that was not what that letter was about. And I have a 9-page Q&A if anybody wants it. There was a conflict between, if there's a conflict between an executive order and the U.S. Constitution or any existing federal law, the U.S. Constitution and federal law prevail. So they are the supreme law of the land. And only an executive order might be challenged by a court or legal litigation. So that we're following federal and federal law and the Constitution. Oregon schools must still maintain policies, programs, and activities that are required by state laws. So, for example, if we got a required policy from OSBA, we would put that policy in, because that's a state law, it's a requirement. So just trying to make sure that we're really upfront with everybody about, what we're trying to make sure that we have the proper policies and different things in place. And I think we've seen recently where we do have some gaps in policy, and some policies that are older, like from 2018, that really need a refresh. And so we're working on that, including the policy that talks about how we review library materials, how we select library materials. That policy is, while we have the policy, we don't have the accompanying AR, which is what tells you how to do it, right? So the AR is really the meat and potatoes of that system, and tells school districts, how you implement that within the district. And districts are allowed to, when you're talking about an AR, we're allowed to change that to fit our system and to try and fit our community. And so I think that the district leadership team and the policy team will look at those things, and Tony's going to go into that more a little bit later in the meeting. PACE has a great legal team to support us, so if we have any questions, we can reach out to them. They are also tracking all the court decisions and executive orders to help districts manage complicated issues. And OSBA legal team's available, you know, they're really very fast about getting back to us. So if you have any questions about that, reach out to me. I'll try and keep it as streamlined as possible, but it's kind of complicated times as a superintendent right now. Any questions on that?
No, I'll just say, reading the OSBA and ODE letters are frustrating to me. Because as board members, when you sign up to be a board member, it says it's a nonpartisan position. And I try my best to live there. And it's really hard when I see charged language, like fear will not be our guide. Like they're taking stances when we in education need to be trying our best to be in the middle. And it's really frustrating to try to navigate this. Also knowing that there's potential legal risks on either side, to be choosing language and saying we will not do. I'm like, I don't want to be involved in this as much as possible for legal risk. Now, I'm not saying you're putting it, this is a complaint about the language they use when they're sending this out. OSBA.
Yeah, it's not a complaint about what I put out.
Yeah, the OSBA is also supposed to be like a nonpartisan position, and they're taking partisan stances. It's really tough as our guiding organization. I'd really like to see them be a little more in the middle.
Yeah, and I think that's actually been expressed several times to them. I know when I worked in Southern Oregon, I think Southern Oregon feels invisible in the state.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just like the Valley, the Willamette Valley runs everything, and like, you know, districts on the east side and in Southern Oregon, sometimes they feel like they don't really matter in the state because the Big Ten run everything, and, you know, the rest of us are, even though we're number 70 out of, I think Silverton's number 70 out of 197. So we're considered a medium-sized district when we still, you know, we still get lost in the shuffle sometimes, and those big voices kind of over-dominate sometimes in the school system. So I feel you on that, Josh. Yeah, and I don't know what to tell you to make you feel better, but
It just is what it is, right?
yeah. Okay, well, so that's that. Let's go on to better news, more interesting things. Maybe. Okay, so Heather Johnson wrote the PGE electric bus grant, and she got it, which is so exciting. So the district is going to receive $800,000 to purchase 3 electric buses. Aren't they cheap, right? So affordable. They're pretty expensive, but that also includes a charging station and some other things. So just what Kim needs is another grant to manage. Number 131. Yeah, there are 130 grants in ODE's system.
Do these
and
belong
that-
to us or First Student?
So what happens is, we wrote it, the money comes into the district, and then, well, I can let Kim tell you, it's really complicated how it happens. Because they won't grant it to First Student, they only will grant it to public schools. So,
Yeah, this is considered a pass-through grant in which we applied as a district. However, the assets will be owned by First Students. So it is unique. It is going to be a benefit to Silver Falls. And we just recently had a meeting with one of First Students' leaders who did offer to join a future board meeting and share some of the feedback they are finding in, believe it or not, student behavior is different on an electric bus, significantly different than on a diesel bus. Noise is a huge part of it. And then there's a pride of being on one of the fancy buses, if you will. They look a little different, as most electric vehicles do, like them or not. They look different, right? And so it is a little bit unique in that it is a benefit to First Student, but the benefits to our students will definitely be felt. And they are more than happy to come join us at a future board meeting if the districts would like that. They did share with me that each bus is well over $400,000.
oh, I didn't realize that.
Correct. And of the roughly 850 we're getting, 150,000 of that is for the infrastructure for the charging stations. So there is significant cost to first student for this. Very complex. This is, I will say, I'm not an electric vehicle expert, and certainly not an electric bus expert, but very excited to be learning about some of the benefits that you wouldn't think of for our students.
Yeah, and these buses will operate mostly in town, so it benefits the in-town routes because you can't, those exterior, long-range rural areas aren't as good for this type of product. But,
With this
or
being,
vehicle, so.
sorry.
No.
With this being a pass-through grant, we're on a contract with First Student. Should that, should we choose to go to another provider, which we've done in the past, who maintains ownership of those? Does our next contract make sure we have 2 replacement electric buses that come with it, or how does that work?
That was why I requested a meeting with First Student. Unfortunately, these become the property of First Student, as well as the charging infrastructure. We have requested a draft MOU. They have done this with multiple other districts in the state. PG is very familiar with this. This grant is fueled by the Oregon Clean Fuel Credits, is my understanding. I think I might have quoted that right. Again, is PGE funding that is passed through. They, again, are more than happy to come join us. I fully anticipated some questions. It is a unique partnership. Our current contract is currently expiring after 2 more fiscal years. So that was my original request, I guess. So we're definitely getting more information, and again, their leadership would be happy to come and address some of these questions about how those assets are passed along. So.
Yeah, we can have Justin join us at a meeting. He would be happy to do that. And we just learned about this about, like 3 or 4 days ago?
Exactly,
Yeah,
yes.
this is real new, so.
I had the same question, and so I think it would probably be good for them to
Okay.
kind of
We'll
talk to us.
have
We
them.
need to be able to explain that to the public.
Yeah, correct, yeah.
And one more. I'm assuming, other than they're cool, the cost is important to me overall. I'm assuming we don't have to pay diesel. It might be more effective, cheaper, but with our finance situation, the maintenance and stuff, I'm assuming they're very low maintenance. Are we gonna get a credit? Or is it, we just got 3 buses and
That was my first excitement, was woohoo, fuel savings. Unfortunately, as we'll talk about in a little bit, energy costs are not great right now. The cost of ownership of electric vehicles is also not overly viable right now. So there's currently a mandate, and I'm going to probably misstate this, but if I recall correctly, it's December 31, 2035, you can no longer buy a diesel school bus in the state of Oregon, period. Fortunately, they have not found that electric buses meet all the needs of schools, so we fully are very curious how that need is going to be met, because 10 years to replace every school bus in the state is not viable. So, yeah, a lot more questions than answers at this early stage in the game, yes.
And we pay for a student by the mile, right, by the trip, no,
By the route.
by the route, yeah.
So there's
it's
not really like a net cost
They
savings
have
here,
not
so.
seen
Yeah.
significant savings in electric buses.
it may
over
open us
diesel.
up to other grants though. I'm thinking
Yeah,
if we
correct.
show that we're being, more environmentally,
Correct.
that maybe we can get some secondary grants.
I
out of
did
this.
ask about that, if this was a one and done, did we just lose our
Yeah.
opportunity, and was confirmed that other districts have received multiple rounds of this grant. So there is some need-based, again, our geographic district makes electric buses not necessarily an option for everywhere. This grant was written that these buses would focus on our most underprivileged, if you will, or underserved areas. So these 3 buses will operate in the in-town areas. The recharge is not quick. If you can imagine, it's a little different battery system. So, yeah, there's a lot of questions. Being perfectly honest, they don't expect to see these on the road until possibly late fall 2026,
Yeah, it takes a while. to
if
develop.
not later. So But we will be holding on to some money and making sure we're earning interest while we do that.
Yeah.
There is a 75% upfront on that, so.
And is there a time when we have to execute and start using that? How many
So
years?
right now, it says the grant agreement has a September 30th, 2026 date. And I apologize because I believe I misspoke on our contract. The grant agreement is 3 months after the end of our current contract with them. And so we are looking at some timing issues. There's just a lot of those early questions. Again, we've had just a couple days, but we'll bring Justin in,
we will.
and he will
Yeah.
be happy to address a lot of the complexities and how they've worked with this in other districts as well.
And his experience, like how it's
Absolutely.
worked and if it's.
Probably worth
Yeah.
adding, because I think we could go down a lot of rabbit holes,
Right.
a lot of
We-
questions.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Okay, and then the last item I have for you guys this evening on the superintendent's report is, we did miss 3 snow days in a majority of the districts. So Silver Crest has like an additional day and maybe Victor Point. But we still, even with that, we meet all the instructional requirements for time in buildings, for ODE. According to Tony's complicated calculation, they have a matrix that he fills in, and it tells us whether we have the required minutes or not, and we do. So I would recommend not adjusting our calendar or making up those days unless there are additional missed school days in March or April. And the reason being is that I think that it's difficult for families. You know, we have one of them would happen this Friday and one would happen on Monday. So they're in very short, they were very close to our weather issue, and so it doesn't give us a lot of time to warn families, and some people have vacations and different things planned for that. And then the other thing, the other thing is that I think the teachers, and the staff members, I think it's good. I think they're tired a little bit. I think they're just really working hard and they're really stretched thin this year, and so we, in the interest of morale and because of all the things they gave up last year, we would like to just not make those up because we are making the required instructional minutes. And so that would be my recommendation. I don't need any board action on it because the calendar is fine just the way it is. So I just wanted you to be aware.
While we're on the busing, just a question out of curiosity. My understanding on busing, we pay for the day whether we had school or not, correct?
That is in our
So
contract.
if
Yeah.
we added those days back, then would we pay for additionally 2 days of busing?
I would need to review the contract on that, but.
I was
would
just curious if
guarantee a
we'd gone,
minimum
if we'd
number of
gone that
days.
route, would that,
I would think so.
I would expect that
Could
would be
cost
an
us more
addition.
money.
It could cost
I
us
would
additional.
expect.
yeah, but just curious about that.
That's a great question.
That is a great question. Yeah. And that's all I have this evening for you, unless
Oh.
you have any questions about any of that.
Okay. The other Kim, financial report and
Yes, wonderful.
Do you want this,
enrollment.
Kim? Are you?
I do not have a visual for you tonight. However, on Board Book, please, everyone could take a look at our financial reports as well as our enrollment reports. Tonight, I'm going to start with an update on our financial reports. We have seen a lot of movement in the past month on the revenue side. As we've shared in the past, we often live in 3 fiscal years at any one time. And that has definitely been true for the past couple of weeks. In late February, we received our first rebalancing, what we often call the update of the state school fund. Usually we will see that in November or December. The state will rebalance the state school fund based on the reports and the information they have. It's usually followed by changes throughout the spring. So this is definitely the latest that I have seen. A rebalancing of the state school fund. We only have 3 payments left for the entire school year, so that's a pretty big change for us. Before I begin, I just want to take an opportunity, offer what I feel is a timely reminder of a pretty consistent message as we're preparing our 2025-2026 proposed budget. You know, these budgets are built with the best information we have available at the time, and we must meet certain timelines for budget committee meetings, hearing publications, as well as submission to the state and approval by the board. And oftentimes we don't have all the information. So those budgets must be actively monitored, must be adjusted. We cannot print and shelve a budget. Public school funding is very fluid, very complex. And tonight I'll be sharing a perfect example of that, and I'll have more on that in a moment. I want to begin with an update on the current school year financials and want to reflect back a month ago to our February board meeting. At that meeting, I shared some disappointing news that we are projecting our transportation expenses to be much higher than we budgeted. But the one piece that I did not clarify, of all expenses, this is one category that has an offsetting positive impact. So with the estimated additional transportation expenses I shared last month, that also means we have an additional revenue source of approximately $270,000. 70% of every dollar of what we call home to school or academic transportation is reimbursed through a transportation grant. So immediately after discovering that for our February report, contacted Oregon Department of Revenue and said, I need to update what I have estimated for the current school year. So that update was done just in time for the rebalancing. So in late February, the first state school fund update was released. And the results of that update reflected that our state school fund revenue for this current school year would be approximately $160,000 under what we budgeted. And this is great news in comparison to the prior update was indicating we'd be $540,000 under their prior estimate that we had at the time we budgeted. Wonderful swing. Again, it's one of those weird, yes, you have increased expenditures, but they are offset by additional revenues. One of the great benefits, though, of that current year update is that it also provided some data sets, some data points that allows us to take a look again at what is known as a reconciliation payment. Your current year state school fund revenue payments are always just estimates, even through the end of the year. And it's not until May, almost an entire year later, that that is reconciled and you find out really what should you have received. At times that results in additional revenue, and you hope it doesn't result in a payback of an overpayment of revenue from that prior year. So again, with that late February estimate and the data sets that were used in that, I was able to recalculate our own projection of what we may see for that reconciliation of last school year, 2023-24. In May, we will get a reconciliation. They paid us X, it should have been Y. Is that good or bad? The positive is that based on that information, I am projecting that we were underpaid in 2023-24 by almost $475,000. So if we're going to get an additional $475,000 this year, and we are now about $159,000 under what we budgeted, that is where the resulting figure on tonight's financial report indicates that I believe our state school fund will come in about $316,000 above what we budgeted. So I know that's a lot of complexity, but we're looking at what did they change this year to, but what are we looking to receive for last year's reconciliation. So with that said, as I mentioned just moments ago about budgets being fluid, literally the day after I posted this to Board Book, a revised state school fund estimate came out, and they had discovered a adjustment they needed to make, I'm not clear as to why, in what they call the statewide teacher experience factor. That is a key factor in our state school fund formula. The state looks at reports that are done by our Human Resources Department and by every single district in the state. And they look at the experience by every teacher, and if you have teachers with average experience greater than the state average, you get a little bump in your state school fund. If you have teachers who have an average experience factor below the state school fund, you actually could see a reduction, if you will, compared to a neighboring district. It's very complex, but that spread, because we know that nearly every district in this state has licensed salary scales that are based on experience. Usually our more experienced teachers are compensated higher. The state adjusts the state school fund for that. Unfortunately, the statewide average went up, so the gap between our number and the statewide number shrunk. That one adjustment of 0.09%, I believe is what, or 0.09 was the factor. That one change is about $120,000 reduction in our state school fund. It is so complex, and I just share this to tell you literally how fluid all of this is. So while your report tonight is still showing a projection of 316,000 realistically, next month I expect that to be closer to 193,000. Still above what we budgeted, but I just wanted to be fully transparent and share that. So yeah, that's about as active as it's been, you know, for a whole year to go this long and then have those couple updates. So having addressed both the current year state school fund and the prior year state school fund, we also just in the last few days have our first projections for the 2025-26 state school fund. So the state school fund statewide for the biennium of 2025-2027, the 2-year span, saw a historic increase from $10.2 billion to a projected $11.36 billion right now for our state school fund. It's nearly, actually it's over 11% over the 2 years. This is a great investment in Oregon schools. The early projections from Oregon Department of Education, coupled with our own internal projections, indicate that Silver Falls State School Fund in 2025-26 is projected to increase about 1.3 million. Sounds like a healthy number. Unfortunately, that is about 3.5% of, about a 3.5% increase. The early projections for the following school year, 2025-26, or excuse me, 2026-27, the second half of the biennium, we're projecting possibly about a 2.2% increase. So additionally, our integrated plan allocation, which reflects our student investment account and our high school success account and some additional grants, millions and millions of dollars, is essentially flat. We currently have 38 staff members in there, and our costs for those staff are not flat. So we know we are going to be needing to adjust some of our funding for some of our staff unless there are significant changes in the current allocations. You know, this information coupled with unknowns in multiple other funding sources remains our top priority and focus in developing the budget for the coming year. And the greatest impact on these figures comes from, just as Tiffany shared, a continued reduction in our enrollment. Our graduating classes at the high school continue to be 80 to 100 students larger than our incoming freshmen. And with that, you know, being seen, you know, throughout our district, throughout our schools, we have engaged in a 10-year enrollment forecast to have somebody take a look at Silverton as a whole, the surrounding areas, look at our enrollment area, and give us an idea, what will we be seeing in terms of birth rates? Who's moving in and out? Are we seeing families move in, or are we seeing more, you know, more established families move in that maybe are after the student enrollment population? And we are exploring multiple options that may allow us to serve additional student populations and have more students in our schools. So I just really wanted to make sure, you know, we can share that state school fund and grant funding is not keeping pace, right, with our increasing costs. I imagine every person in this room can attest to our utility bills in the last couple months, as well as maybe insurance renewals. We are seeing the exact same thing here. Costs continue to outpace the increases in those funding. And I'm sharing this not to be negative at all. I feel very positive about where Silver Falls is in terms of our financial outlook. We have really found ways to operate efficiently. We still have areas that we need to address, but I'm providing this for context, for the planning, the budgeting, the looking forward, not only for 25-26 school year, but we need to look at 26-27, a 2.2% increase for the second half of the biennium. That's that is something we need to be looking forward to. The biennium after 25-27, there are some additional costs coming our way. Unfortunately, there's another PERS increase coming our way, potentially 6% or more additional increase. We just, I share this, that, our schools continue to serve every student every day with the most amazing educators and support staff, despite these challenges. And I feel optimistic. I seriously do feel optimistic for the district. We are on the right path, but we have to be very cautious and measured. As we see, tonight's report shows a projected $2.7 million ending fund balance. Incredible. We thought we could end the year at $1 million. Incredible work, but we also need to be thinking about the long-term plans for Silver Falls. And I just wanted to be as transparent as possible. Sometimes I don't like having to deliver the message, but it's key information to have.
Can I add a couple of things? So the specialized grants that Kim was talking about, so SAA, Integrated Plan, HSS, all of those, we were told as superintendents that those would have a 10 to 11% increase, they estimated, and that isn't really what we've seen. So that isn't coming through like we thought it would, and I don't have any explanation from the state on that, why that is different, but we thought there would be an uptick, and it's really very flat right now. So, those could change again. I mean, those changed in September.
Absolutely.
There was an error on HSS. So, we're still hopeful that those will go up a little bit. We have not heard about the early literacy fund. So the governor asked that they double that allocation. It's currently at 90 million. She asked them to take it to 180 million. And we have not heard from the legislature whether that's going to happen. One other thing in the legislature that is still pending is two different SPED bills, one that boosts the repayment for districts on high-cost disability, and then the other one that would increase our payment for our special education students who are on an IEP. So there's currently an 11% cap, and that raises the cap to 15. And so those did have bipartisan support in the first round, and so they are moving through the process. But you know how that we won't know that until June, probably, I think. So I mean, there's a little window of hope, but we have to be realistic about what we're working with, and we have to be creative about how we save money. And so I sent you an email yesterday about this morning about one idea we have to save money, and I think that trying to recapture some student enrollment by creating maybe an online kind of hybrid plan, because currently in the state there's a law that if more than 3% of your students are exiting for an online program, you can stop it at 3%. You can put a cap on it, but you can't cap it unless you have something to offer them. So because we have no online program for our students to take, we can't cap anybody. And so when I looked at that report that Heidi sent me last week, that's at like 4.5%, I think. Is that about right, Kim?
Correct.
Yeah.
We're up over 4, yeah.
And so we've lost several students to the online charter schools and different things, and we really would like to recapture those kids and bring them back into the district and help them with a system that maybe is better than just a purely online thing. So maybe a hybrid kind of combination thing. So we're working on that. So we'll keep you posted on that.
That sounds really exciting to me. I mean, financially, obviously, but from a kid's standpoint, some kids would just do better in that kind of a situation.
Yeah.
So, awesome.
Yeah.
In a hybrid model, we would still get 100% of the money, wouldn't we?
As long as they're more than half-time, so they have to have
Okay.
five
Okay.
courses with us, then we would get full ADMW. But they could still take a course, if they were in a homeschool program and they wanted to take, some particular course, we could still give credit by proficiency for that. So, there's some real we have that policy in place
Right.
already. That's one of our policies that's actually updated. That looks good. So, I mean, you can take a student, so for instance, credit by proficiency is like, say you had an 8th grade student that whizzed through Algebra 1 in 8th grade, and they come into the high school. Well, normally they would have to take Algebra 1 in high school, but you could give them a placement exam or their STAR assessment test or their OSAS. There's a bunch of different ways that they could show that they understand algebra and shouldn't need to take that again. So that you could give them credit by proficiency for algebra because they've shown that they understand the material. It's like me, I don't ever want to take a beginning sewing class. I don't need that. And we don't want kids to take courses that aren't interesting or challenging to them. We want to move them along in the process. So
Right.
credit by proficiency would be part of something we use in that system.
Oh, good. I like the thinking. I shared the other day, I think we need to think outside the box and take our financial situation and turn it into a positive of getting us think of ways we can increase revenue, decrease expenses. And as a lifelong educator, that's what I shared the other day too, we like to think we're innovative and we're not in education. We are always about 7-8 years behind society in general. And it's good to hear that we're thinking of some things that might help us catch up.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah.
If I can add one more piece, there's
Yes.
a second report on Board Book, which is an enrollment report.
Right.
We do unfortunately see that we lost 28 students in the month of February.
Hmm.
That is pretty significant for us.
That's quite a loss in a month, isn't it?
That is a significant loss. Now, there was a change in semesters, so sometimes we have some early graduates. There are different reasons for that. Just wanted to, we've talked with some of our administrators. We do see sometimes some return over the springtime. We see some re-enrollments, but we will be continuing to watch that. We've added a couple graphs to your enrollment report now at the bottom, showing just a visual of the movement by month. But the piece I did want to point out, and I wanted to just address this so that it wasn't misconstrued. There is an 8-year enrollment and FTE chart at the bottom to show where our enrollment has been in our students and where we are in our staffing. And what's really interesting to me is we are very similar to our staffing in the 2017-2018 school year, yet we're about 300 students less today. So our numbers are about the same, but I want to be very clear that does not mean we're adequately staffed for the needs of the students today versus the needs of the students in 2017-18. And so we are looking at this. This is the financial picture of why this is so difficult. That our enrollment is down 300, our staffing is roughly where we were when we were at almost 3,900 students. We're down to 3,600. That does not mean we're meeting the needs that our staff members have today, because student needs are so varied. We do have an increased special services needs, that sort of thing, but this helps explain, although maybe not answer how to solve, but it does help explain the financial struggle that we're feeling. That in a perfect world, we would be staffed adequately based on our enrollment, but our needs are not being met based on our current staffing levels, and that's the challenge that really commend our superintendent for being as creative. And I mean, there have been some great ideas, and everybody in the district's collaborating on how we can do this, but it just helps kind of explain why this is so challenging right now.
One thing, I hate to even ask this question, because by asking it, I could invariably create work for somebody that doesn't need any more work. But I find it interesting in FTE, when we're talking schools, we don't see a breakdown of certified. to me, that would be interesting to see certified numbers
Oh, the
compared to
ratio
enrollment
between- Yeah.
over time.
That actually is the data is available, so we could actually break that out.
Yeah, that's not too hard.
Okay.
Yep, we could
This
have a
is
line
all
for class.
staff, right?
Yes,
Okay.
that is all staff.
Okay.
The other piece I have to throw in there is FTE is a full-time equivalent, right? So 2 4-hour employees is a 1.0. Sometimes FTE and the number of hands and feet on the ground might not always align, right? So sometimes having 2 4-hour employees can have more benefit than a single 8-hour employee for the needs of a student.
Definitely.
So that is a complexity, really, that balancing what do those daily schedules look like to best serve our students within our resources. So all questions that we're working, trying to figure out. Yeah.
And the complexities of our geographic area and our number of buildings and, you know, some of those buildings have very small student counts, and so those are, you know, those are more difficult to staff. And so there's just a lot of challenges in the district, a lot of complicated parts, moving parts.
Okay.
I'll go. I saw the 28, you know, I'm a data guy. I immediately freaked, because that's about $300,000, like that. And I was like, where are they going? And I cannot emphasize this enough. Offering an alternative option for students, like you're talking about, is not, it's a must in today's society. The world's changing. And we live in an individualized world. People are looking for models what best fits them, their family, their child. And if we don't come up with something, I don't think our numbers are going to change or the trajectory until we become even, say, inclusive to all these other options
Yeah.
that are there. And I went and asked. 5 of these went online, or like 10.
Yes.
18 high school kids, like pop. And it was like, whoa. And they're just finding something that fits them. Maybe the classroom's a little too stressful. They want to, or they don't like bowling. It was just like where you didn't have options before, now you do.
Yeah.
And I said this to the previous superintendent, and I said, if you're not first, you're last. People are going to find something else that works for them. It's going to be harder to grab these people that jump ship,
Yeah,
because they're already used to the program they're already in, and they're not going to want to switch over to us.
right.
So the faster we do this, the better for all of us. Or,
Yeah.
I don't even know how it would look like for our teachers. Like, this is what I need you guys for, because I have no idea what it looks like. Do our own teachers transition to this? Like, you know, it's different, but the numbers are telling we have to change.
I think Jen Hannon's been working on this all week, last couple of weeks, and so she and I have a meeting. We were supposed to do it today, but probably tomorrow, to kind of see where she's at. But we, as a district admin team, we took those numbers, those 27 kids, and we said, where did these kids go? And we knew where every kid went. So, I mean, that part's good. Like, the administrators all knew what had happened, and there was a variety of reasons. But when I heard that online number, I was like, that's too many.
Yeah.
And then we also lost several Latino students in that. So there were 5 kids that are not in our buildings anymore. And that's just really sad to me, and I don't know if that's because of the challenges with immigration or, but, you know, we're watching that as well. So there's a lot of things to contend with. But I do think you're right, Josh. I think that having something that meets families where they are and gives them more of what they need is important to some of our community. And I think that if we can bring those people back into the fold and show them that, you know, we are an exceptional district. We are a public district. So, you know, we have to operate within the confines of a public school system. But I think, you know, there are things we can do to help manage that. So,
Like, this is my last one on this, is that I know that you can't demand information of why, but do we have some form of an exit interview of, do the principals know, like, why we can kind of like make those changes? I know that but sometimes you're just not going to know. How does that work when students disenroll? Do we have categories for them?
Well, it depends. So like some of the students that dropped from the high school need more support, and so they're going to Sequoia, and so Jen's already got them in the fold.
But
and
they're
she's-
still in our district, though.
Yeah, that would still be in our district, but sometimes kids 10-day drop. So that isn't automatic in the system. So once they've been absent 10 days, the system 10-day drops them, and they turn into a 3E, which this is the code for a drop, for a 10-day drop. So I mean, there's a lot of, it's just really there's a lot of technical parts of that, but I can tell you that your principals, they had a good idea of where those kids had gone, and we're reaching out to them and trying to re-engage kids that aren't engaged and get those kids back on track. But some of them were, like we had a family that moved out of state, and they had 4 kids. They went to Utah or something. So like, people move around, and that's, 4 of those kids were out of one family. So I mean, I think it was 4. I don't know. It was several kids that have moved. So, I mean, that happens. But
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, let's move on to discussion items. First up is superintendent evaluation results. Something pleasant to talk about here. And I'll turn that over to Derek. Derek headed up our efforts on evaluation of our superintendent this year. So.
Yeah, so this process started back in about August, kind of late August of last year. We sat down to decide what standards we'd be looking at for evaluating the superintendent. She was involved in that process. We used the OSBA and the COSA work evaluation kind of as a template for standards. I'll go into some more details here in a moment. One of the things that was really important to the board was to solicit feedback. We recognize that we have some blind spots. We interact with the superintendent, but there's a lot of other folks that interact with the superintendent on a daily basis, and we wanted to solicit that feedback. And it can be awkward. I think if you're chief executive and you're having your direct reports kind of provide some evaluation feedback, but we as a board really thought they would be helpful. And so for the folks that participate in that, it was helpful for us as board members to get that feedback. So thank you for engaging in that process. I'd like to thank WASD. They helped us put together the survey that we were able to push out anonymously, and I think that really helped the process go very smoothly, both for us that provided feedback and then the direct reports as well. I'm going to read a couple overarching statements about the superintendent's eval. I won't read its entirety, but it'll provide a summary, and that'll be available as a public document later. The Silver Falls School District Board of Directors has completed the annual performance evaluation of interim superintendent Kim Kellison for the 2024-2025 school year. It is important to note the district landscape in which this evaluation was conducted. The Silver Falls School District was coming out of an extremely challenging year and stepping into a school year with many unknowns. The previous 2023-24 school year saw significant budget cuts, resulting in a sizable reduction in force for the 24 and 25 school year. There were fractured relationships, a decline in community trust, and concerns about the felt impact of the cuts at the classroom level. The evaluation consisted of 8 professional standards, 3 of which the board placed significant weight upon, given the challenges the district was facing. We wanted to provide clear direction to interim superintendent Kellison about expectations and focus. Those 3 standards the board prioritized included fiscal management, effective organizational management, communication, and community management. We utilized the rating system that was provided in OSBA. There's 4 categories. Accomplish, which is the highest. That consists of performance is routinely outstanding and acts as a model for others. Step down from that is effective, performance is consistent, and then there was developing and ineffective. So regarding the professional standards of ethics and professional norms, policy, governance, and advocacy, fiscal management, effective organizational management, communications, and community management, we determined Superintendent Kellison's performance was exceptional, receiving the highest rating level of accomplished. In the areas of visionary district leadership, inclusive district culture, culturally responsive instructional leadership and improvement, the board believed Superintendent Kellison showed high levels of competence and expertise and earned a rating of effective. So overall, the board is very pleased with the superintendent's performance thus far. We provided some additional feedback for each of those standards, that she would have that to move forward. And that concludes our evaluation, unless any of our other board members have anything they'd like to add.
Just we've been we've been very pleased with what Kim's been able to do in our district over the last 8 months. And she's responded very well to a lot of very difficult situations at times, and it's appreciated.
Thank you, Phil.
We asked you to be a balm to soothe the district, and I think that you've acted in that way, and thank you very much. We appreciate you.
Thanks, Jennifer.
And thank you, Derek, for the work that you put into the
Yes.
evaluation
Yeah,
process.
that was a lot of work.
Yeah, Kim, I just want to say huge thanks to all the work you put in. You know, it started before day one. You know, I remember when you accepted the position, you said, "Can I start early?" We're like, "Well, you have a day job," which is hard as a superintendent, and you asked to help early, even before you were on our payroll.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to commend you for that, and just your ability to come in and understand our situation extremely quickly and extremely fast, and be able to understand kind of where we needed to go very early on in a very, very complex situation. I just really commend you for your efforts there and all that you've brought to our district, and really helping stabilize this year. So thank you.
Thank you. That's really nice. Thanks, Aaron.
I appreciate Kim's stance when we have problems that come up. She never has we can't solve this. It's always, we're going to figure this out. And may not know the answer right then, but it's not going to be, there'll be one eventually, something worked out. Later on, we'll be making in action items, we'll be making a resolution to adopt the results and to continue employment. Next item, the next two items are somewhat, well, they're very related, but they warrant discussion separately. 12B and 12C. Kim Nelson to permanent superintendent status or leave as interim superintendent. Kim has outlined for us the restrictions that come, that a lot of them that I don't think we even thought of, that come from being interim superintendent and trying to carry out some of these, especially long-range type endeavors for our district. And I'm aware, obviously, that Kim wants to lose the interim piece. And I feel that I know amongst our board, but I think we need to have a discussion along those lines. I just want to tell you that before we get in discussion, I've been in conference with OSBA lawyers and have talked to ESD and some others on this, and these two are really intertwined, the contract and the taking interim off. And so first, so I just want to tell you that, and then so I think we should have some discussion here on our willingness to take the interim title off, and then we can talk about the how. Get into the weeds on that. But
I'll go. Kim, I think you have just done an outstanding job, and I love our conversations.
Me too.
You really challenge me, and I hope I do the same of, trying to see everything from every angle and how to best serve the community and keeping it together. I also think that for a district, we had a Kiwanis meeting, and one of the things we were talking about, I think that affects enrollment as well, is also stability of a district. So when you have, 7 principals in 5 years, or 5 and 5 years at another school, and bouncing superintendents, it's really tough for not just the families and students, but also the staff. And I am perfectly okay if we remove that. I think you've proved it, and that's my opinion. I think it's well earned.
Thanks, Josh.
Yeah, I've got a pretty easy opinion on this one. Yes, remove the interim superintendent tag, and I think we need to move forward as permanent. Kim's been on a 9-month job interview, and she's passed with flying colors. You know, I remember when we interviewed Kim, there was something special about her, and I was like, you know, glad that our board decided to move forward with her in our interim position, and she has exceeded all that I thought I saw during the interview process. She's delivered on everything she's set forth as our interim superintendent. So this is an easy decision for me.
Yeah, for me, you stepped into like a crisis situation. We were just looking for stabilization. I feel like we're there. I think the next phase is the complete rehabilitation. That takes, you know, permanency, and it takes time and effort. I mean, your dedication's been clearly shown. You have a pretty healthy commute
Yeah.
to and from
Yeah,
each
if you
day.
see a good house, let me know.
And so
It's rough out there.
I think you've proven that you're 100% committed, so I'd be comfortable if at some point tonight that comes up and make you permanent.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just I'll just agree with everything that everyone said. Kim, I am completely in favor of removing the interim title and making you our permanent superintendent.
Thank you.
Your commitment is really clear, and the details that you know about the district, they're impressive, and I assume that you have learned more in the last 9 months than maybe any other job that you've ever had.
Very true. Yes.
And I think we're lucky to have you.
Thank you.
I'm a big supporter of it. I found Kim wonderful to work with. She's been very open as far as working with the board and very transparent. She, even if it's items that we're not gonna maybe directly be involved with, if she thinks it, you know, it would be prudent for us to know this, she lets us know, keeps us informed, keeps us in the loop. I would like to speak to, some may have a concern. First, I'll give you a real quick background. When we brought Kim on last summer, our situation was we had a couple of acting superintendents, and we had Joe Morlock come in here and help us through some transitional time, and then we needed to make a decision about the next year or so, and it was one of those decisions we needed made yesterday, sort of thing. And normal procedure when you're hiring a superintendent is you have a lot of lead-up meetings involving the public, involving the staff, involving the unions, everybody, and filtering down and bringing in candidates and have a broad search. We didn't have the liberty of time to do that. So that was one reason we went the interim route. But at the same time, when we were going the interim route, we knew that there would be interims that would apply that would be just that, a year's interim. And there would be those that were looking for it being a longer commitment and wanting to try it. And we ended up with good quality people in both categories when we did the interviews. And as mentioned by several here, Kim won us over at that time as far as, and she was one in the category of might work out to a long-term relationship. But we didn't have that public input. But we ended up with something better. We ended up with 8 going on 9 months. Well, actually, she started before her contract, so it is 9 months. With 9 months on the job showing what she could do, which is going to be better than any filtering system you do pre-hire as far as knowing what the fit is to our district. And she's a definite, in this person's opinion, a definite fit for this district and the type of superintendent that I think our staff was looking for, I think our community was looking for, and I know the board was looking for. And so I'm very much on the taking the interim title off. Now, we can get into the weeds of that. With a new, essentially it's a new title, it's a new job, it's a new position. with that should go a new contract. And so there's ways we can do it. But after talking, best practice would be for us to, if we were desirous to do this, to commit to making her our permanent superintendent at a forward date. Make that a forward date. And then that gives time for getting the contract all lined up and negotiated. We have a 2-year interim contract in place, so it's not like we're just spinning in the wind. And so that's in place, and then whatever date that is, and the cleanest, quite honestly, would be July 1st fiscal year, and school year, July 1st. But we can make that commitment tonight so that her and everybody else, staff and everybody knows she is our superintendent, but it's an effective date of July 1st and gives time for the negotiations for the contract. And so that would be the best practice.
Makes sense.
As board, we can do whatever we want. We could do it tonight and hash it out and back of a napkin and get it done, but
I think that's how we did it the first
it's a little more sophisticated than that.
Sorry.
But anyway, so that, from what I've been able to find out from lawyers at OSBA and talking to them at ESD and everything, that seems to be, had several conversations on it, so.
Hey, Phil, I have a question on this one. It says, discussion of her contract or negotiating, is that something that we could, what's best practice for that?
We're doing it right now.
But we're not talking any numbers, we're not talking.
We have to
No.
appoint somebody.
What we do is just like we did last summer, we appoint a couple to negotiate the contract.
Okay,
They would bring it back to the board in an open session.
okay.
That contract would get approved, denied, adjusted, whatever.
I think that was Owen last time that was,
Those two.
No,
you guys did?
we do.
Yeah, I just felt uncomfortable if like we're gonna be going nitty gritty in public session about her contract.
No,
I'd prefer that in executive session like this.
that, you can't do it in an executive session. That's a definite no-no. And
So
so
you
no.
can, we can appoint, if it's you two again,
Yeah.
or whoever the board decides to appoint, would negotiate with, Kim or Kim's counsel on the details and the T's
Yep.
and C's of the
Yeah,
contract.
but it's still brought back to the board
Right.
and discussed in open session and
Okay.
approved or denied.
I'd be favorable of, in favor of appointing you two again to do the contract negotiation, if that's,
I think that's the wisest thing to do,
yeah.
also being that the board is possibly it is gonna change.
I'm willing, are you willing?
Well, this would all
Yeah.
transpire before, because July is the switchover.
It would be done before
Okay.
the effective date.
Okay.
Yeah, but these
We-
two are still definitely gonna be in the leadership position until then, so, and they've worked closely with Kim all year.
We'd both be willing to be part of that. And so when we get down into the action, what we'd want to look at is talking about this we could do tonight as far as determine length, maximum of 3, but could be 2, doesn't have to be 3, but could be 2, or could be 1 for that matter, but that's highly unusual. So length of time for the contract and effective date. And
We
then-
would need that for a motion later for an
Right,
action item?
right, and it would be, what would end up being, it would be for the 14B.
So you need the length of time tonight as well? I mean, could that potentially be a subject of negotiation?
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
assuming it'd be
that's
negotiated.
Yeah.
It could be part of negotiation, or board could decide that.
Okay.
I mean, my thinking is that it would be part of the negotiation, and you would come back with a recommendation to the rest
Right.
of the board based
Yeah,
on your
yeah.
discussions.
No, that is very part, but it is also within the realm of the board ahead of time to decide
Right.
negotiate a 2-year contract, negotiate a 3-year, whatever.
And Phil,
And
wouldn't,
did you to access WESD attorneys last time?
Yes,
Okay, so we would assume that the same.
I've
should
already
route.
checked on
Thank
that,
you.
and we can.
and Phil, wouldn't that possible action tonight fit under C instead of B?
That's what I was wondering.
Under
It-
the possibility, we could change that action, or if it needed to be amended to, designating appointees for negotiating of Kim's
Well, this is
contract.
what we weren't gonna know until we had the
Yeah,
conversation.
Yeah,
I assumed it would go this way, but until we had the discussion, I did not know. So we needed to do it this way,
Yeah.
but then once all the facts are on the table,
yeah.
so we could amend, in my thinking, we could just amend 14, what is it? B and-
C?
B and C, is it?
Well,
I
B is
think-
just the permanent discussion or the decision to make her permanent rather than interim, and the second
Yeah.
piece is the designees of the contract negotiations.
Contract negotiation.
I don't think it matters. We
Yeah.
can break it up into
Yeah,
6 different motions.
it can
and
just
make
be
all-
part of it, yeah. You can make
Right.
permanent, and then in the and then in
Do
the
one motion.
other one, we could make such and such, negotiate a contract, so still 2 motions, so.
I just want to
Leave
say
it
that
alone.
I also appreciate the way that the agenda was crafted in order for us to have the discussion, and then we still have time for public comment, and then the
Right,
action item. So appreciate that.
thank you. Okay, if there's no other further discussion on B or C, we'll go on to district technology needs. And who's our presenter?
Yeah, there's nobody assigned.
Nobody?
No one claims it?
I apologize for
I got nothing,
Table it.
which is unusual. I'm like,
Is this-
We can table it for,
I was surprised.
well, I think that we did establish a tech team, so I don't know if we were just supposed to tell you that. So I'll give you that update, and then
Okay.
we'll pretend that was what's supposed to go there, but I really, I don't, yeah, that's interesting. Brett Milliken and we talked with the admin team, and, really engaging with him about like what teachers need to be successful in their classrooms, and, really starting that dialogue again with teachers and staff members about what functions best for them, and really taking some feedback. So we decided that it would be in our best interest to reestablish the tech team. How long has it been, Kim, since we've done the tech team?
boy, pre-COVID for sure.
Yeah, so it's been
Yeah.
probably 4 or 5 years. And I think what happens is there's so many technological things that you could add in a district, you could use. There's so many tools that I think really streamlining those to make sure that we're not paying for ones we don't need. So are we doing double duty on things, and really like being very intentional about the systems and supports we use, and running those through the tech team, and talking about changes and needs and different things. And so I think that having that tech team back in action is a great idea. So that's going to start meeting, I think it meets in April for the first time. So.
Okay. Selection of instructional materials, suggested ARs.
Yeah, and I'm gonna tag team this with Tony real quick. I will tell you that this topic is on here this evening because of the book that was in question in the high school. And, when we investigated our policy, we didn't really think that it had a good process for if a parent really wanted to challenge a book, or if they had some type of issue with one of our materials inside a building. And so I'm going to let Tony present these, because he really has been working hard on this, and we've got some options for you to look at. And I sent these to you separately, but it's good for our community to know that we're proactively looking at this and making sure that we have the right processes in place. So I'm going to turn it over to Tony.
Thank you. As Kim mentioned, that our policy that we've had currently is somewhat generic in the sense that it focuses on the adoption of instructional materials. And most of us understand instructional materials to include everything from core materials to library books to a plethora of other things that is really about providing resources for the use of students. However, what we've seen as in the current situation, that there are nuances to that, and we've really need to spend some time thinking about the differences between how materials are selected in terms of core curriculum which is of course usually aligned with state adopted materials, right? Also though, that we have supplemental materials that teachers may use within a classroom. There may also be library materials. Another area that's gained a lot of traction in recent years is use of open educational resources, which is a way to provide resources and materials to students for, which can really be a benefit because one, they could be a little bit less costly for the districts, but two, they're also readily accessible for students. A good example that you may hear coming up in the next several months is as we're starting to look at the health curriculum, for instance. You know, we are, and we do have, if you walked into the district office, there are several different options there with health curriculum. However, we've also found that there are a lot of good, what we call Oregon educational resources that are open resources that could also provide curriculum for that too. Then you have to go on to the, aside from library materials, there's even classroom materials that get used, classroom libraries and whatnot. So what we have found is that our current policy, which really focuses on instructional materials from the broader sense, really has to consider a range of materials, and some of them have very unique situations and considerations when you're adopting them. Again, where like the core materials follows a state guideline, there's also some materials that start becoming more a focus of what is right for this district and its time and its place and its current needs. So what we are going to be doing in the policy committee meeting, which actually meets this week, on Wednesday, we will be actually taking a deeper dive into this. What you have on your agenda tonight is you have the current policy and the administrative regulation that goes with it. And the administrative regulation, much like the policy, provides a general process, and it tends to really focus in this AR on instructional materials. Mm-hmm. However, if you had an opportunity to take a look at some of the suggestions that are out there, it provides a broad general policy that does emphasize the difference between instructional materials, supplemental instructional materials, library materials, classroom materials, and then there are several different regulations that provide a methodology for the district to consider both the initial adoption, the ongoing review, as well as how to address concerns that are raised in a process for, like, whether it's a community member, a parent, or even some cases students who may have a concern about particular materials. So there's a series of these regulations. That's why there's so many items that are attached there, which talk about specific ways of looking at the core materials, the supplemental materials, library materials, and whatnot. So we're going to be doing a deep dive into this, and then as part of that policy committee, then we will bring forward a more thorough recommendation for you to look at. But we think this is very timely with what's happening now, and it's a good example too, as Kim mentioned in her evaluation and updated reports, is that there's a reason why when we're doing this work as a leadership team, we have to be cognizant, of course, what's happening currently, but also be mindful of some of that history and the tradition we have here, which policy is one reflection of that, but then also trying to think about where we're heading, because there's a good phrase that we say, you know, and we attorneys sometimes speak about this, is that, you know, when you have policies and rules, and especially the Constitution, you're thinking from the standpoint that yesterday's majority can become today's minority. Mm-hmm. Today's minority viewpoint could become tomorrow's majority. So you have policies and procedures and constitutional protections in place that help ensure that through all of that, there is a solid understanding about what are those standards that we're going to hold in order to consider these things. Because we do know things can change through time, but what should be steady is a process for how we look and review these items. So that's where we're at. I'll be happy to answer general questions for you, but I do think a lot of the work will come after the discussion with the policy committee this week.
The only question I have is, and I'm not sure what the answer would be to it, I noticed on this particular policy in AR, the policy states in there, towards the end of it, having covered in AR about, I think it was about a library book or whatever, and the AR doesn't even touch it. I guess when I saw that made me worry, how many other ARs do we have in similar situation where they don't follow through a policy, without going through every stinking policy and cross-referencing is the only way you'd ever know. But
Yes, Kim is.
That came to light to me on that it said in there would be an AR, and then there wasn't.
Yes, and that is partly due to the process for how policies and regulations get updated. Oftentimes what we found, and particularly in this district, because we are several years behind, that a policy can get updated, and then you have a plan for getting an AR updated. In the interim time, though, there can be another new recommended policy from OSBA, or sometimes that recommended policy becomes a required policy. So it truly can be that at one time, you're operating under different structures and different procedures. Part of the way to address that is, one, we need to, I think, spend a few months, spending a concerted effort to get ourselves up to date with particularly required policies. That's why on Wednesday, I'm going to make sure we focus on, it'll probably take a few meetings, but to focus on the required policies, and then we can get to some of the more of the recommended or optional policies. And then the second piece of this puzzle is to establish a definite sequence and timeline for how we review these policies. So it should be each quarter we take one or two of the key areas. So you're used to hearing policies in A, C, G, H, I, and K, right? The different categories. That we will consistently review those. So like we know that every first quarter or every other first quarter, we're going to be looking at policies, sections A and C, say. And that will help us. And then I think too, one of the things that we need to think about here in the district, at least for my review of the policy work, is that we really need to have an established office speaking. And yes, it is partly, of course, everything is a superintendent's responsibility, but in a district this size and with the changes we've seen at the administrative level, to really have a dedicated office that's also taking the time to manage these things. So when I, for instance, preparing for this meeting this week, Debbie and I reviewed the policies, and we're starting to think in terms of, we're asking those questions. Well, here's our policy that we're doing now, but are you thinking you're getting an update next month from OSBA that may have updates to even what these recommendations are, right? Because then why do it, right? If we're going to have to do it again in a few months. So to be able to focus on that, and Superintendent Kellison has asked me to start taking, where usually, again, it is usually the superintendent's realm, but we all know she's also doing the work of curriculum and teaching and learning, right? To be, I'll gladly do that work, especially since a lot of those policies are personnel related, right? Almost every policy has something to do with your employees. So I think those are some steps we can take that hopefully will address this. But I'm going to be upfront and honest that because of the backlog we have on these, it's going to take a little while to get us up to speed.
Right.
But I think what we have to do is we have to commit that maybe each month we're going to crank through some of these policies so we can get them to you.
And so how I was doing it was a little bit different than that when I first started with you guys. So I was taking OSBA's recommendations for updates and using, they had an update in August and they have one in April, which was the first one we worked on. But when Tony did an audit of our overall policies with Debbie, he decided that it would be more prudent if we focused on the required policies first and get those all organized. And so Tony did more of kind of an audit, as you would say, and he has more concern about making sure all the required policies are updated and in place. So we've kind of changed how we're doing it a little bit. I think Tony's way is better. And, it is normally a superintendent thing, but he's graciously, helping and doing that portion of it, which is really nice of him, and he has a really good lens for it because he is an attorney. So he's really on top of it, and he'll do a much better job than I would. So.
Well, the other reason why to focus on the required policies is quite frankly, it's practical reasons. It's the required policies that if you don't have clear guidance on them, or if they're not up to date, that's where you get your legal trouble and the risk management for the board.
Right, and that is why we didn't know, that's why we didn't have a process in place for when the book challenge was brought to us. And so, my first phone call after I started working on that was down to Winston and say to their superintendent, I said, did I update that in October of last year? And he goes, yeah, you did. And I said, oh, that's good. Because there's so many of them and the updates are so frequent. And I mean, we should have had that AR and that policy in place. It would have guided our process with that, and it wouldn't have been so troublesome or worrisome for our community, that, you know, because the policy guides your practice, and it's really important to have all those things in place and updated, so.
Okay.
I'll make
Tony will take
one
great
comment
care.
on this is we have one policy, one AR, and then this one's got the suggested each individual AR for each carve out. My point of bringing it up is I just keep seeing more and more policies, which means you lose track of the ones you already had. You're making a policy on top of a policy. They already had a rule for it. So just trying to streamline these things to be more, I guess, efficient would be great and not overcomplicate things, but at the same time following the laws and being compliant without muddying the water, so to speak, would be great.
Indeed.
Because
Yeah.
I was reading this like, this is already in policy, and like, I've never even heard of some of these things like site councils or, you know, the review. I mean, I've been on the board 2 years. I don't think I've ever reviewed any material.
From
You know.
site council.
Or no, just in general, like the selection of materials is up to the board. I've never seen any of it. Maybe because it's done every 7 years, I think, typically, and then maybe it's part of the consent agenda, and like, that was our review of it, but.
I think
Usually
that
the curriculum.
refers to curriculum adoption.
Curriculum, that's
Yeah.
curriculum.
Yeah, usually the curriculum, or the director of teaching and
Yeah,
learning
that's
would
it.
have a presentation. You know, and sometimes when I was doing that for Dallas, I would do like a community presentation and then present to the board, you know, what the teachers in our community came up with for a recommendation, and then the board would sign off on it, you know, so. But yeah, it should, those things should come to the board.
Yeah, and Josh, I think the way that this is laid out is more formatting in a sense, because it could be all integrated into one
You
big
could-
AR.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think broken out this way, does make more in number, but it's makes sense. Tony, I wanted to make just a couple comments. I know you guys are going to be reviewing this in your policy committee, and but one thing that I noticed about the review, or the reconsideration is what it's called in these suggested policies, it delegates the substantive review to, it's basically the system is that the board would appoint a reconsideration committee, and so it delegates that review to an appointed subcommittee of the board. And I just wanted to point that out because I think there's some wisdom in doing that. When there's, you know, contentious materials, you know, I think OSBA would say that's probably not board work. But I also think that a lot of our constituents might be unhappy with that, to the extent that we, you know, our review then, if it would come all the way up to the board, wouldn't be a substantive review. It'd be a review looking at whether the review committee or the reconsideration committee followed the process that's outlined. So it'd be a very limited, and it wouldn't go to the substance of the actual book. And I just think a lot of constituents feel like, you know, what's in your school library rests on the board's shoulders. And so delegating it down, I don't know how a lot of our community would feel about that. So I think that's something to think about, and I just wanted to bring that up. And then the second thing is actually with regard to the selection of materials, the sample administrative policy. You know, it specifically states that, you know, the librarian will consult, so I'll just read the words.
What's the principle?
I just had it. But basically, we'll consult established expertise, you know, in the area, but it doesn't define who that is or what that is. And it doesn't say that the librarian will follow that consultation. It just says consult. And so I'd like to see that language tightened up a little bit, because I think, you know, some people would not necessarily agree on who the experts are. And, you know, I think there might be the ability to, you know, kind of choose your experts. And I'd like to see some language added that would say that those library materials would, I don't know, something like align with our adopted, you know, district vision, educational vision, and our values, or, you know, something like that. Just a couple ideas for your policy committee to think about.
I do think that the district media specialists are going to meet. So Jackie Renaud is our district librarian, and so I think they have a meeting in April. Is that right? I think it's in early April to really work on that process and really define what that looks like inside buildings. So there'll be more to come on that too.
I've got a couple thoughts. I had the same thought that Owen did with the subcommittee, and I think maybe one tweak is the subcommittee may make recommendations to the board, but the board has kind of final say as opposed to just the appeal piece. Because again, I think delegating some of that responsibility down when our role is to, accept and approve some of the curriculum piece, I think that might be a fix to that. And I think obviously this came to light right now just because it was kind of a lightning rod issue. And I think we as a community and as a board and district leadership have a real opportunity to do something I've heard you say and Jennifer say is really model the way. And I think we have seen tonight that this is definitely a polarizing issue. So it's an opportunity, I think, to really step into that and be thoughtful. I think we did get caught off guard where we didn't really have a great policy in place. And so now we're looking to remedy that problem. I wrote down some personal goals with this just because I knew it was such a hot issue. I do want to share that just because I think it provides a little context. With the materials that we provide for students, we want to make sure that we're not violating state and federal law. We want to protect the district from legal and financial liability. We want to be culturally aware and sensitive to the community and the variety of views. And I think also we want to make sure that we're not providing obscene materials to our students regardless of the perceived or rate relationship that may be in some of the content. So those were really kind of, as I took a deeper dive, and there's obviously some legal language in that, some specific case law, but I think, as we move forward, just keeping some of those things in mind, that that's how we should be stepping into that as a community, just with a little bit of grace, argue it passionately, but make sure we're making good decisions.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, and glad we have the policy committee. That is a real plus to go through these things for us.
And
'Kay.
when we say committee, we don't mean a committee of the board, right? It's a group that's led by you, right?
Right, there's a
Yeah.
couple of board members on it. And
Policy has 2 board members on
Yeah.
it.
Has two better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but we, it's not,
Are you talking
The
about the
same thing.
committee for the reconsideration?
No, this
I'm
is
just talking about, yeah, like if it's a board committee versus a Kim group.
Superintendent work group.
Right, and I think it's a Kim's in charge of that. It's
Right.
not, we are not in charge of
It's a
that. Kim is in
district,
charge of that.
district committee headed by Kim.
Josh, you look,
Well, are you referencing the policy committee or the reconsideration committee?
policy,
What we have now, the policy committee,
Okay.
that was just set up recently.
yeah. Which is different than our finance committee, which
Right.
is a committee of the board.
Correct.
Yeah, I just want to make that clear. It's sometimes confusing.
Yep. Okay. Done there? Everybody fine? Okay, EBBA, final read.
Well, this one, this item has come to the board, several times, and I know this was one of the policies that in the discussions over the last several meetings, there were some questions to be asked, and I think even Debbie was doing a check with some OSBA people on this one this week. So it is scheduled for a final read, but we want to make sure you have the opportunity if there were any other remaining question or items of discussion on this.
Right.
If there was anything that would be anything significant, the way policy reads work is that as you get to the final read time, if there's any change in it other than that would be just like Scribner's errors or just formatting issues or really non-material changes, you could still do those and adopt with the third reading. Any other type changes that are more substantive, at the point of the third reading, you almost have to go back, because we'd have to reslate it as an updated policy. So that's just kind of a procedural piece.
Right.
For you to all think about.
Yeah, this was the final read. Well, and the reason it got separated out was because the changes between first and second hadn't happened. And so the reason we separated it out was to verify, to make sure that we could deal with it separately, that those changes had in fact taken place.
Yep.
So,
Indeed.
just
Yes,
an
you're
explanation of why it got centered out separately. So, okay. This is time for second public comment. And at this time, its comments are to be directed to the discussion or action items of tonight's board meeting. And again, anybody would like to speak, hands up. Right here, please.
My name's Taryn Mardo, and I wanted to speak to the budget and also the low enrollment. I was a teacher for 14 years with Tiger Tualatin School District, and I think I know it's not gonna happen overnight. I do think it's gonna take years to build up, but I really think we need to increase our engagement with the community. I was a Spanish teacher. We really need to build better relationships with our Latino families in the district, and I also think we really need to reach out to our Russian families and communities a lot. I know through like the YMCA program and those that are really interested in sports, I think that's kind of where we could connect. And then if you happen to be online lately, it is really troublesome. This Silverton, the engagement in our community is not civil, it's not kind, it's divisive, and I think we really need to work on connection and extending some olive branches because, and I really think it's the loudest people on, let's just call them sides. It's extremists on one side that are making 50% and 50% look bad, and like in the classroom, like that is not, we need to, well, actually, I don't know, I would have a different approach in the classroom, but I just think that we really need to work on community engagement and relationship building. So that's what I wanted to say. And also, I really think that and it doesn't have to be our minority groups entirely to build up that population. At the meeting, I heard from some of our board members that we have the lowest enrollment since 2008? 2008-9. Yet, what are some of the really loud people in the community complaining about? This population growth. I mean, I'd love to see the numbers and compare all the numbers since 2008 to 25, and then also the population increase in the district. So, I don't know, you just have to work with the numbers and the facts and come up with a plan, and I really think that you guys can do it. I think you guys can do it. I've been in a lot of school board meetings, those that over a decade with Tiger Tualatin School District, and right, I mean, I'm really school spirited, and I was green and silver, and I was maroon, and I mean, I was that, but right now I bleed orange and black for the Silverton Foxes, and so I think that there's so many people. There's 10,000 people in the city limits that feel the same way, and then I don't know the numbers, but I'm sure you guys do. What's our district size?
Your time's up.
Your time's up, Sarah.
Oh, wait a minute. Sorry.
Okay.
You can call me
Thank you.
later, Tara.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We did order a population study, so that, I don't know how long that takes to get completed, but
Any others here?
it's en route.
Sue?
Yeah.
I'm Sue Rossler, community member, and I think what I heard tonight is that we are going to get the interim label off of our superintendent's job description. And in honor of doing that, I want her to be reminded that she is a true fox.
Oh God, Sue, I love you. Thank you. That's so cute. Oh my gosh.
Big fox.
Yeah, you want to see him?
Yeah, you gotta show it. You can't keep that
Yeah, I was
secret.
gonna say, show us what you got.
My new office mate. Yes,
Don't
thank
even
you
have to
so
feed it.
much.
Okay, any others here? How about online, Kim? Is there anybody?
We have no hands raised online either.
Okay, and we'll move on. Okay. Okay, I'll entertain, someone make a motion on a resolution concerning the Adoption of the evaluation and continued employment of Kim.
I'll do it. The Silver Falls School District Board resolves to adopt the evaluation of Kim Kellison as presented at the regular March 2025 board meeting and to continue her employment per contract.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded for Silver Falls School District Board resolves to adopt the evaluation of Kim Kellison as presented at the regular board meeting 2025 and to continue her employment per contract. Any discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nays? All in favor. Okay. Now for the next item of business, concerning making Kim permanent status or permanent superintendent. And we can do this with a motion. Remember, we should have a date when it's effective of.
I'd like to move to make Kim Kellison our permanent superintendent effective July 1st, 2025.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to make Kim Kellison our permanent superintendent effective July 1st, 2025. Any discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay? All in favor. Okay. Then concerning possibility of renegotiating Kim's contract, in effect, we would be making a new contract that would supersede her present one, again with an effective date of July 1st. And so I guess what we want here is a motion to name negotiators and to begin negotiating a contract for begin July 1st, something like
So
that. Some of you wordsmiths better on that.
I'd like to make a motion to authorize Derek and Phil to negotiate a permanent contract with Kim Kellison as superintendent to start July 1, 2025 for ratification by the board at a public meeting prior to July 1, 2025.
Second.
It's been moved in second to, and I'll let you read that again.
To authorize Derek and Phil to negotiate a permanent contract with Kim Kellison as our superintendent to start July 1, 2025 for ratification by the board at a public meeting of the board prior to July 1, 2025.
Thank you, Owen. Is there any discussion?
Yes. I just want to, before we move on to that, I wonder if we need to have a resolution about you two accessing attorneys because that's a special kind of thing. But maybe that's just because we've had the discussion, it's just rolled into that idea. And the other thing that you'll need access to is to Kim Dowd, right? Because we need to know how much we can afford.
Right.
And it's kind of an odd situation, but
bit,
I just
yeah.
wanted to talk about it in public because we never want Kim to be put in a weird position, right? And we only have one employee, which is the other Kim. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that up and just be transparent about it.
And I think as far as my take on that is we're fine in discussion if here in public, both Kims are fine with that going on with
Yeah,
Derek and
that's
I.
fine.
So,
Yep.
so
I don't
good
know if
thing.
we need a separate
I don't.
resolution.
I really don't think we do.
But I just wanted to make sure
right.
that those things were discussed.
I don't. Yeah. It's good. Transparent. Yes, sir.
Just on that point, do you remember last time the board gave Phil and I some parameters as far as tangible benefits, things like pay? So that can obviously come later.
Well, I was thinking about that too, because we had a process and
Yeah.
we advertised for a
Right.
new superintendent. I don't
Right.
think that applies in this situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This situation, I don't think it does. We
So
just
that'll be important for us. to
that'll
do.
be important coordinating with Kim, and then also important that we have something that keeps Kim and gets all of us here to say yay on approving it.
My expectation would be that when you come to ratify the contract, that you'll come back to us and explain probably the research that you did
Yeah.
and some of information that you received.
ranges, all that sort of
Ranges,
thing.
all
Yep,
that.
yep.
I'm sure
Yep.
WESD
Yep.
will help with
Yep,
that.
yep.
Comparators and
And-
stuff like
yeah.
that, like-sized districts.
One of
Yep.
the things I'd like to also see, just for I'm sure Kim's curious about what her expectations are with the numerous hats she's wearing, and so how that would be put in language, or not. Is she just gonna be expected to do curriculum as well? Like all that kind of stuff that I'm sure you guys will hash out, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, I think our money situation
Yeah.
will demand that
Yeah.
I continue to do
Yeah.
some curriculum duties.
So,
Yeah. That would be my guess.
Yep.
If I was a betting woman.
Okay, any further discussion? Ready for a vote? Okay, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, nay? All in favor? Okay. Before we get to the final item, just a little bit I'm gonna put in here for the good of the order. Just be public, because we won't have another public meeting before it. We have 3 positions up on our board for election. The 20th of March, I believe, is the deadline for filing. The zones are 2, 4, and 5, am I correct?
Correct.
Are the open positions, and so people that are interested, take a look at that. The zone map is on our district website. If you need to look at where your street is to see which zone you're in. You are elected from a zone, but everybody in the district votes for you, if that makes sense. And then you register with Marion County Elections. So, just wanted to say that. Any future agenda items requested?
Oh, EBBA, Bill.
We're adjourned.
Oh, 14D,
My bad, what?
EBBA.
Yep.
Need a motion on adopting EBBA.
I move to adopt EBBA as currently published.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt EBBA as presented. All those in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Now we are adjourned.